There we go. So I'll end the poll here. And as you can see, I'm not sure if I'm sharing the results, but I think it's around 90% of the people that are joining here today are new to Operations Hub. So that's great. We'll cover all the bases, and then we'll also, of course, talk about everything that's new to Operations Hub. Let's see. So this was that question. But I wanted to quickly talk about Operations Hub in general, because you'll hear from a lot of product teams here at HubSpot, specifically those that are building Operations Hub. And why are we building, of course, Operations Hub for all of the operations professionals? And that's because we found at HubSpot that a lot of ops people are very overwhelmed. And they are, of course, people that make sure that all of the marketers, the salespeople, and the service people can do their daily jobs. They maintain the CRM, clean up the data, and connect it to other tools, and then also need to fix those integrations when they all fail. And a lot of people rely on operations folks to make their jobs easier. But as you can imagine, the average day of an ops professional is anything except easy. It's quite overwhelming, actually. They're often an afterthought. And that's where Operations Hub comes in. We decided to build tools to make the life of ops folks much easier to manage their day-to-day, so they can spend less time in the trenches and do more of that strategic work. So that's why I'm super excited for this event, and even more excited to get in all of the new stuff that we've got coming for all of the operations people. So this is our agenda for today. First, we'll dig into Data Sync by HubSpot. That's on the free as starter tier of Operations Hub, where we'll hear from Ewout and Alex on something very new that's coming to Data Sync. And then, of course, we'll talk about programmable automation as well. That's on the pro tier of Operations Hub. And we have Jason and Emma here to talk a little bit more about any new updates there. And at last, we'll talk about Operations Hub Enterprise. This is the newest tier that came to Operations Hub actually last month. And that involves Datasets and Snowflake Data Share. And we have Stephen and Megan here to talk a little bit more about that. So if you have a question, feel free to use the Q&A, please, to post them there. And then we can, of course, sift through it at the end or during the presentation. And if you want to talk to us directly afterwards, when all of our presentations are done, we'll leave time for that as well. You can also click on the raise hand button. That way we know, and I can unmute your mic or ask you to unmute your mic, and then you can talk to us directly. And I feel like I've really been monologuing for hours here. So let's get started. Let's dig into Dataset a little bit more. And I actually forgot to mention, you can join a community discussion afterwards, and the recording will be in your inbox tomorrow morning. With that said, let's head into Data Sync. Ewout, let's start with you. You're the product lead, of course, of Data Sync. How are you doing today? I know you just came from another meeting.
I'm doing great. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. Alex, hope you're doing well.
Doing well.
Awesome. So Ewout, as a product lead for Data Sync by HubSpot, can you kind of set the stage for Data Sync, what it is, quickly explain like where people can find it as well?
Sure. As some of you might know, I'm also the founder of PySync, a Belgium-based technology startup. PySync was acquired by HubSpot in 2019. And with PySync, we've been building a powerful data sync engine that allowed small and medium-sized businesses worldwide to connect their SaaS applications and keep their data in sync real-time and two-way. Back in 2019, when we got acquired, the PySync engine was the #1 rated sync engine in the market. And earlier this year, almost 2 years after the acquisition, or 1.5 years, we relaunched the PySync engine as Data Sync, a key component of HubSpot's new Operations Hub. So with Data Sync, HubSpot customers can keep their data in sync with over 80 different business apps, apps like Dynamics, Zoho, NetSuite, Google Contacts, Outlook, and many more. Where to find us? You can find us in the HubSpot app marketplace. So if you go to the marketplace, simply search for an app that's supported by Data Sync, and it will show up. There's also a category of Data Sync applications in the marketplace.
That's great. And I think we already hit like 50+ supported apps, I think, this year alone,
Yeah, even 80 plus actually. We're on our way to 100 different apps. Kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So here in the show and tell, we try to look back at Q4 in this case. What were like new updates that you brought to DataSync this year, or like in Q4, and what is like on the horizon for DataSync?
Yeah, sure. So DataSync itself got launched 6 months ago. Initially, we were just syncing contact records, but quickly after the launch, we also added support for company records as well. And very recently in Q4, we added support for deal sync. A very powerful feature, I would say, that allows you to map different deal pipelines between HubSpot and other systems. For example, if your sales team is still working out of another CRM like Pipedrive, but you would love to have all that deal and sales information in HubSpot, for example, to set up automated workflows, email campaigns, or even do reporting based on that deal data. In that case, you could use DataSync. You just go to the marketplace, you look for, in this example, the Pipedrive app, you install the DataSync listing, go through the onboarding process. It's really easy. In a couple of minutes, you can activate your sync and all your deal data will be in sync between HubSpot and other CRM systems. There's also the possibility to map your pipelines. So if you have a pipeline in one app and another pipeline in HubSpot, you can really map all the stages onto each other to make sure the data is flowing seamlessly between the different applications. There's a question in the chat if we sync with Salesforce too. So HubSpot has a very powerful Salesforce sync. It's not on DataSync, but it's a very powerful sync that's available in the marketplace as well, built by HubSpot.
Okay, cool. We actually did like a deep dive on deal sync in the community. I think it was 3 weeks ago when it launched, or was very close to launching. So I don't have the link ready right now, but I'll put it in the chat in a couple of minutes. But if you want to, you can feel free to, rewatch that recording and figure out exactly how deal sync works and what it's all about. But I now really want to like focus on something that's really near or coming very nearly to DataSync. Can you kind of explain or talk a little bit more about that new big feature that's on the horizon?
Yeah, so DealSync just got launched, but what's also very exciting is our upcoming launch of DataSync Health. So DataSync Health will give you all the insights you need and how the sync is performing. So today, if you activate a sync, we're not really giving you feedback like how many records are being synced, what kind of errors are happening. But with Health, you'll get that level of transparency. I'm very excited to give the word to Alex. Alex is the product designer on the DataSync team. He's been building out the amazing Health designs and is going to give us a quick demo of how Health is looking today.
Cool. Thanks, Ewat. Hi, everybody. As I mentioned, my name is Alex, product designer on the DataSync team. Been on the team about a year, and it's been pretty incredible to see the effort the team has put together to get, we're now supporting contact, company, and deal sync. And we more recently have turned our focus to, as Ewat was saying, what happens after you turn on your sync. There's been a common theme of feedback, through the different channels that we monitor. And we're excited to begin to be able to tackle this problem. And that theme is that our customers want to know what's going on with their sync after it's turned on. Like Ewat mentioned, what's syncing, what's not syncing, and most importantly, why something is not syncing. So we have the good news is we're going to be launching a feature shortly that's going to start to alleviate some of that pain. So I want to walk you guys through a quick demo. If I can make this work. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Something that looks like ActiveCampaign?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so just to level set a little bit, I am in a QA environment and my portal has been acting a little funky today. So hopefully everything behaves. It may not, but we'll see. So let's start by setting up a sync. So here I am in ActiveCampaign, and this is my app of choice for this particular demo, but any data sync app, like these features will be available to you and they'll work the same. So we'll go ahead and set up a sync. We'll do a contact sync. Set up your sync rules, your field mappings. Yep, everything looks good. Review, start, save and sync. And now we're going to drop you right onto this new health page. So you'll be able to see some new features here. If you're if you're familiar with Datasync so far. But to kind of walk you through this, I'm going to go into another app that I have already set up to walk you through some of these cool features. So something should already be available is the sync status, but this, I don't know if you saw on the last screen, when you set up your sync, you'll see this starting to tell you what exactly is happening with the sync. And then below that, you have these filters. So for Zendesk, I have both a contact and a company sync set up. So I can filter down to what specific sync I'm looking for insights on. We'll just look at all syncs for now. And below that, now you're going to see how many records are in sync with the ability to click in and see a list view here. Here's all the records that are syncing. What is failing to sync? Again, with the ability to click in and see what's failing to sync. And then lastly is the records that are being excluded from the sync. And the concept of exclusions, if you're not familiar with it, is when you're going through your sync setup and you get to that sync rules page, you could set up filters. And if the records that you're attempting to sync don't match that filter criteria, they're going to be excluded. So what I want to focus on, which I think is the coolest part of this whole thing, is the failing to sync section. Just to sort of like illustrate the power of this new feature, say that you have, a database of 5,000 records that you're looking to sync. And for some reason, once you've turned the sync on, you only see that something like 2,000 or half of your records have gone through. And, what do you do at that point? And up till now, there's not much you can do without going through, your two different systems and manually going through each record to try and figure out what's going on. But now with this failing to sync feature, you're going to be able to see exactly what's failing to sync and why. So here you can see the record name. You can see what sync it's coming from. So these are from the contact sync that I set up, where it's failing to sync to. So this is a record coming from HubSpot that is failing to sync to Zendesk. And then we have these cool error tags that are going to tell you what the error type is. And then if you hover over these things, it's going to tell you exactly what the error is. So for example, this one says name should be present. So I can click into this record right here. And I look at the record and I can see that, yep, the name is missing here. So I would go ahead and fill that name in and come back to sync. And I was hoping I could do this live and show you guys the magic, but things are being a little finicky. But then you would see that this number go from 5 to 4 because it now has a name added to it, and that record is going to be in sync. So that's sort of the long and short of what we're so excited to get to you guys. We're opening a small private beta for people who are interested in getting their hands on this and providing a little bit of feedback to the team. And just with the understanding that obviously there are still a few kinks that we're working out, but we definitely would like to get this to people as soon as we can. And if you're interested in that, I think Jan is going to be sending up a follow-up email with a form to fill out that you can indicate you're interested in joining the closed beta and give us some of your information. So thanks everybody, and excited to get this to all of you.
Thanks, Alex. I actually just put the form link in the chat already, but I also mentioned it in the follow-up email tomorrow. But yeah, this is really great to see, and I from what I recall, when I think Datasync first launched, there was a lot of feedback that it wasn't really transparent and people didn't really know what was going on internally. So I think Health will clear up a lot of that, that vagueness around Datasync. But this is really great to see. So do you already have like an idea of when this will launch next year, or is it still kind of on the docket?
The $1 million question. So we'll say early next year. It's coming soon. We don't want to set any false expectations. Like I said, we're still working out some kinks, but you can expect it soon.
Okay, that's good to know. So Ewart, going back to you, I know that you've been working hard, the entire team has been working hard on, thinking about 2022 and what the future might look like for Datasync. Is there anything that you can already kind of reveal or give us an indication of where Datasync's headed next?
Yes, well, 21 was definitely exciting for the Datasync team, but 22 might be even more exciting. Of course, I can't share too many details yet, but in 22 we'll definitely make our sync even more powerful. There's definitely some improvements that will come to our filtering components. We'll unlock more field mapping possibilities. And we definitely plan to ship a couple of more objects just beyond contacts, companies, and deals. Not sure if I can ask questions to the audience, but feel free to put in the chat what you want to see coming to DataSync. We're in the middle of our roadmap planning exercise, so your input is definitely welcome.
Yeah, feel free to put it in the chat. I'm not sure if we will be able to talk about it at this point because we still have a lot of things to cover. But feel free to put your feedback or your ideas for DataSync here in the chat, and I will take it with us for the next time. Okay, but let's switch gears and let's talk about programmable automation, the second thing on our agenda, of course. We have Emma, and I'm not sharing my screen, so I'll quickly share my screen again. There we go. We have Emma and Jason here. Emma is a product manager, and Jason is responsible for the design of, I think, everything that has to do with like automation and maybe specifically programmable automation. So thank you both for being here. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Same.
Yeah, happy to have you. Now that we're focused on programmable automation, that's part of the professional tier of Operations Hub. Can you kind of explain what falls under that tier in a bit more detail?
Yes, of course. So Operations Hub automation features fall into two categories. The first is data quality automation, and the second is programmable automation. So for data quality automation, we're primarily talking about our format data action. And this is all about managing and maintaining the data in your CRM so that it's clean and consistent to help with your overall data health. And then it also helps with your customer facing workflows. So if you're sending emails to your customers or texts, just making sure that everything looks professional, things are capitalized, things are formatted correctly. The other aspect to Operations Hub automation is programmable automation. And so this includes our custom code action as well as our webhook action. And these are really about providing you with super flexible actions that allow you to solve problems that are unique to your business or industry. So I think some of the things you can do with it fall into like two different categories. The first are things like a more robust lead assignment model, which is more specific to your team or doing more complex calculations, things like that. And then the other side of that is using them to connect to your other tools and services that you use, whether you want to send data in or get data in or send data out. So we've been making a lot of updates to the custom code action over the last few months. So I'm going to hand it off to Jason, our product designer, to walk you through the latest one.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. As Emma said, my name is Jason Frade. I'm the product designer for the automation extensions team. So we own all of the sort of programmable automation stuff that Emma had mentioned, as well as most of the actions that you see within workflows. I'm really excited to share with you this new update to the custom code action that we are calling inputs. So inputs are going to make it quicker and easier for you to use your HubSpot data directly in your code without the need to make any API calls. So Emma already mentioned data cleanliness. So data cleanliness in your CRM is super important. And the custom code workflows action can be a really great tool to help you clean up your data. For example, you may have a lot of contacts where phone numbers are all formatted differently, or you may have some contacts that have a phone number, whereas others may only have a mobile phone. So let's see how we can use custom code to fix this problem. Just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I select the right desktop. Cool. So let's say you wanted to use custom code to format your contact's phone numbers and copy the mobile phone over to the phone field if one doesn't exist. So today, in the custom code action, this is how you would do that. So this would require you to pull in your HubSpot happy key. It would also require you to write all of this HubSpot client code and make an API call for every contact that gets enrolled. each of these API calls are going to count towards your API limit. So you can imagine if you were doing something more complex, like lead rotation or any other case that you could use custom code for, you could really easily reach that limit. With custom code inputs, that's no longer a problem. To do this exact same thing using inputs, you actually no longer need the happy key. So we can actually go through and delete that. You also don't need any of this HubSpot client code. So we can actually go ahead and delete all that. Instead, all we need to do is actually scroll up to the top here where it says property to include, and actually add your 2 properties. So now all you need to do is add in your phone number and your mobile phone. Cool. And then all you need to do is write a single line of code for all of this. Cool. So that's actually all you have to do now to include HubSpot data into your custom code. So much easier and so much cleaner than it was before. That's not all. Contact properties aren't the only fields available as inputs. So let's say you wanted to use a format data action to format a name or an email instead of writing it in your code. Just as before, using contact properties, you can actually easily do that by go back up to the property to include, adding a property and choosing the output from that format data action, which is the string value, and then including that in your code. So all of the data, all the output data from each action will be available within this property to include. So custom code inputs are now available to everyone with OpsHub Pro. That's it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Jason. I think that's really awesome, and I'd love to see things added to custom code actually, because I remember when we first did like a presentation on programmable automation, that a lot of people were kind of overwhelmed with the fact that it's just all code. So making it more easier for people who don't know a lot of that is just a great next step, I think.
Yeah.
And talking about next steps, Emma or Jason, I'd love to hear from you. Like, what else is kind of on the horizon for custom code actions?
Yeah, we're actually really excited to announce 2 big things that are coming up soon. So one is actually for webhook action. So we're actually going to be bringing some much needed updates to the webhook action. And then for custom code, we're actually going to be introducing the ability to use Python in the custom code action, which I know we've been hearing from a lot of people about. So we're really excited to bring that.
Yeah. And
stay
Nathaniel
tuned
just
for
asked
more
in the
details.
chat.
I saw that. Yeah. So stay tuned for more details. That's still kind of ongoing.
Yeah, that's just awesome. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Jason, for sharing that. Let's move on to Operations Hub Enterprise, the newest tier of Operations Hub. And we have Stephen and Megan here. Thank you both for being here. I'll share my screen again in the meantime. There we are. Okay. How are you doing? I didn't catch that, I think.
Doing well, Jan. How are you doing? Thank you for putting this on. You've been doing great so far.
Thank you. I was a little bit nervous. I still am a little bit, if you can't tell. But yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about Datasets now that I have you on the phone here. Datasets has been out, I think, a month now. We already did a kind of a deep dive on it. I think we just wanted to use this time to explain what the new feature is all about, because I'm sure we saw that a lot of people are new to Operations Hub. So I would assume that Datasets is also pretty new to them. Can you kind of elaborate what Datasets is all about?
Yeah, Datasets is about giving more focus on the reporting side of operations and kind of putting more power in the hands of your operations team or the most data literate person in your company to make data reporting easier, HubSpot for everyone else, and kind of like unlock different calculated insights and more power that's previously not there. That's like on a high level how to describe it.
Cool. So it's really to make it easier for, I would say, like downstream teams to do reporting on their own instead of like having to sift through all of the data fields. that the operations teams have created, I would say.
Yeah, make it easier for them and then give more power into the hands of the person that really wants the power, like your most data literate or operations person.
Cool. Did you, yeah, what are like other things that people can do? Because I'm sure that it's not just about curating, but you can also perform like other types of actions to that data, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through some of this in the demo, but like there's a bunch of different functions you can use to transform your data to be like the base data, and then transform something that's more actionable for your team. So instead of looking at like a close date of a deal and the open date, you can make a custom time to close property and kind of like derive the number of days to your team to close a deal, which really like leads to more downstream actions about how you want to shape your sales process and how everything's going for your like overall business health.
Yeah, I think that just sounds awesome. Feel free to, share your screen. I'll stop sharing mine so you can take over.
Cool. Yeah, definitely went to the right desktop. I guess you guys see my portal test dashboard, correct?
That's right.
So we come into HubSpot, Datasets sits under reporting, and then you go to Datasets. It's only under OpsHub Enterprise, as Jan mentioned, so otherwise you might not actually see this option before upgrading. Here, I'm just going to jump right into the creation of a data set. And this whole experience, keep in mind, is really focused on like your operational person. This isn't somewhere that we're really expecting too many sales and marketers to spend a lot of time, only if they really needed to and there's no other one to like help them out with this process. So first step should look a lot like the custom reporting tool, where you're actually just joining together different tables that contain the information that you need in your CRM. What we intend to do at this screen is really make it easy to understand what's going on in the data join. I should be able to see when I click contacts and then deals as secondary object, kind of like what a preview of that data looks like for reporting purposes. And this should show you that like when you choose contacts as a primary data source, it gives you a different set of data than if I were switching around and do deals as a primary object and contacts as a secondary object. It really just giving someone like trying to set the reporting environment for the company, all of the information they need to make confident decisions in how the team is going to use this data set output. The second step of this process would be preparing which fields will be available for reporting purposes for your team. So in HubSpot, we have like a personal HubSpot portal. There's thousands of properties and there's like more than 1,000 properties that are never used. Is really about reducing the noise here and kind of focusing on what's most important. So thinking about a data set for your sales team. You're really trying to figure out how your sales team's performed over the year. And you're saying deal name, the amount of the deal, maybe the first name of the contact associated, last name. So a couple things here. Right now, we're just building the few number of measures and segments that are available when you're building a report later. We have a little bit of an insight into kind of what data underpins these different properties in the previous screen, and we've persisted this whole table to give you a table view of what we're building. One big feature of datasets is the ability to make these calculated fields that are only focused on the reporting experience. So instead of like making a whole new contact property or deal property, this is something that only exists in your reporting experience and doesn't clog up your CRM. So a way we can use this is instead of having two data inputs for first name and last name, I can combine these two things. First name plus last. Let's call it first name plus last. Well, that's actually not what I did. Concatenate, sorry. And then we would come here, input first name, and then input the last name. This basically just immediately concatenates or combines any two string functions here. As you can see, this is kind of formatted weirdly in that it just looks like one long incomprehensible word, but we can just like nest different functions together to get even like more specific insights. So if I want to put a space here, I would just nest one function inside of another, and I would add a space into the formula. In here, Steve McMillian, Napoleon Duke. I auto-generated all these names. Sorry, they're weird. But that's one way you can use it for like contextualize just different like words and strings in your data set. But you can also use it to actually get really like, important insights about your revenue and everything that's important for you for your business insights. If I want to calculate the profit of a deal, I can take the amount we made in a deal and I can multiply it by our assumed profit margin, 20%. And then automatically we have our profit right here for you. Or we can wrap this all in a multiplication, multiply it by 12, and then I have my profit for the year. And I just name this yearly profit. So there's a ton of different kind of things you can do in this data set preparation field. You can do date diffs. There's a whole list of functions here. Concat, date diff, date part, date trunc. And every time you click any of these functions, there's like an instructional guidance for how you construct this function in the data set building experience. And we have documentation if you click learn more. Finally, if I really want to pare this data set down to be more focused on what I want to focus on, which is the sales pipeline, I can go in here and I can filter the whole data set. So all I want to know is all of this information focused in my data set sales pipeline. Is any of sales pipeline, and then it reduces the information. And I can take everything I've built here. Let's move zoom controls. Save it. Oh, I already have something called webinar test, I think. Being slow with me. Let's try my backup. I always go backup. Cool. Save. And then when I want to go to build a report, it only includes the information that I made in that data set and excludes all the noise that's usually available in a report building experience so that your marketers, your salespeople only have the most important information they need to get a data insight. That's basically it for data sets. I couldn't see any questions as I was presenting, so I'll pop into the chat and answer them.
Thanks for sharing, Stephen. That's pretty amazing. But of course, Operations Hub Enterprise wasn't launched with just data sets. It would also launch with Snowflake Data Share, which is a new integration. And we have Megan here to talk a little bit more about that.
Great. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Megan, and I'm a product lead on reporting. Excited to talk about Snowflake today.
Happy to have you.
Right into it.
Yeah.
I have some slides. Should I go ahead and share those?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I'll do that. Awesome. All right. So backing up a little bit here. Really excited to talk to you all a little bit about the second feature within Operations Hub Enterprise today called Snowflake Data Share. So you just heard Stephen give a fantastic demo and overview of Datasets, which is a super powerful feature that plugs in really, really nicely with your custom reporting. Operations Hub Enterprise is really all about bringing your data into one place to have a source of truth for your decision making and having kind of that decision making power within HubSpot. And so these are kind of examples of, just to back up a little bit, some of the problems that on the product team we were hearing from customers when we decided to add these reporting additions to Operations Hub Enterprise. A lot of you were telling us you had pain in data in spreadsheets and many systems not having one place for curation. You might have multiple sources of truth that you're making business decisions on. Things are not up to date, and ultimately tools can be really hard to use and train everyone up on across the board. So these are the problems we were really looking at when we built Operations Hub Enterprise. And again, Datasets is really like the primary solution there, where you can curate your data from across your sources in HubSpot for that repeatable decision-making power. And the calculations feature is amazing. You guys just saw it. It's really, really incredibly powerful for just having that, like, again, repeatable analysis of what's working and what's not for your business, so that those frontline teams can have that insight on dashboards on the fly. So Datasets is kind of part one of Operations Hub Enterprise, but the second feature that I'm here to talk to you about today is a new integration that we have with Snowflake, which is exclusive to Operations Hub Enterprise. The reason we built an integration with Snowflake called Snowflake Data Share is we know that not all of you are doing all of your reporting within HubSpot, or all of your reporting within some combination of Google Sheets and HubSpot. We know that some of you are either considering or have already moved over to what's commonly referred to as a modern data stack, where you have many data sources, and then you have a data warehouse source of truth, which you are plugging into a BI tool. Like these three examples you see here are some common examples we hear about where people are visualizing their data outside of HubSpot. We see a lot of folks doing both, so doing reporting in HubSpot and these tools, but we also see some folks kind of exclusively looking to these types of solutions as that source of truth. So that is why we built Snowflake Data Share. We really want to give you access to all of your HubSpot data, all of your contacts, companies, deals in the best-in-class data warehouse Snowflake, so that you can really do whatever you need to do with it. You can write SQL, you can connect tables to your BI tool of choice, you can do reverse ETL into other tools that you need to. It really just opens up the Pandora's box of opportunity if you do use Snowflake already today. So that's kind of who we're talking to, is folks who use Snowflake or are considering using Snowflake. And I'll talk you through it a little bit. This is like a visual of what I'm about to show you in the demo. So Snowflake Data Share takes all of your HubSpot data sources from the HubSpot CRM and kind of quickly, easily, securely syncs it from HubSpot into your Snowflake account, so you can access those tables and really kind of go from there. These are some of the main benefits, again, before we get into the demo. So the Data Share has most of your HubSpot data available. It's 99%, and we're working on making that 100. There's also a 15-minute update frequency, which is pretty speedy. It's fantastic. So you're going to get frequent updates there. And the tables are really optimized for analysis. So I'll show you a little bit more about that. All right, let's hop into a quick demo. I'll show you all how to, if you have Operations Hub Enterprise, how to get started with Data Share, and then we'll have a little time for questions. So the way to access this is really simple, similar to any of your data syncs. You're just going to go right over to the app marketplace here, and you can go ahead and search for Snowflake once you get there. Let's see if this loads up. All right. 1 minute. I just need to log in. While I'm doing that, a common question we get that I'm kind of anticipating from the chat is, are we planning on supporting other data warehouses in the future? And the answer to that is that's absolutely on our radar. But we started with Snowflake because Snowflake is just a really strong data warehouse and has a lot of benefits for a lot of our customers. So this was the starting place, but it's very possible that we'll support other ones in the future. So let us know if you're using a different data warehouse in the chat, and we can definitely consider that for our future roadmap. Okay, so here we are in the integration listing. going on with this demo. We have some great info in here. We have a fantastic Kyle Jepson overview video for you guys to check out. An important piece of info here for this integration is we do only support folks who are using US East 1 AWS for Snowflake or EU Central 1 AWS with Snowflake for your data center. In the first half of 2022, we will be moving to support all data centers. So that is coming soon. If you are not currently using one of those and are interested in the Snowflake integration, we can go ahead and install the app here. And we have just a simple setup wizard for you to use. We'll need your account region. You can look it up by running this query over in Snowflake, and we need your account name, which you can also look up if you don't know it by running this query in Snowflake. All right, and then I'll just go ahead and install. And it's that easy, just a couple step process here. It's setting up, but what I'll do while it's setting up is go right over to Snowflake so I can show you what we can do here. So this is what you're going to see once you've set up the integration in your Snowflake account. The power of this, again, is you actually are going to have all of that HubSpot data, all of the information about your events and your objects available for querying within Snowflake. And there's just a ton of fantastic data in here for you to work with. So yeah, we can go ahead and I think I might have just messed with this. Let's see if it works. We can go ahead and run a query. I think I just kind of messed with the preset that I had, but that's okay. But yeah, you can query your HubSpot data in here again across objects, events, whatever you need. It's super powerful and we're really excited about the possibilities for folks.
Thanks, Megan. That was an awesome demo. Yeah, Snowflake Data Share. It's a really great addition. And now that we talked about everything about Operations Hub, we talked about data sync in Operations Hub Free and Starter. We talked about Operation Hub Professional and Programmable Automation specifically. I'd love to launch another poll to everyone here, which is, we talked about all these features and I'm kind of wondering whether you'd like to receive like a more formal demo by our sales team. So I'm launching this poll right now. If you answer yes, our sales team will likely reach out to you. So if you don't want one, you don't need to answer, or you can just click on the no button. But thanks for filling this out. And that brings us to the final part of this presentation, which is the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A button down below. We'll be able to take it from there. Or if you want to talk to us directly, you can also just click on the raise hand feature, and then I can ask you to unmute your mic. But yeah, I'm eager to see and hear your questions. Thanks. I see
one other,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Feel free to go ahead.
I was going to say one other quick plug for an upcoming community event is next week. We are doing a deep dive into Snowflake where we'll have one of our engineers on the call. And so if you're interested in getting started with that integration, I definitely recommend checking out the community to sign up for that event. I believe it's on Thursday. But that's going to be the time to like deep dive into technical questions on that.
Yeah, I have the link right here. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Sorry, I was meant to actually put it there. Thanks for reminding me, Megan.
No worries. Yeah, I'm super excited about that one. It's going to be great.
In the meantime, I think we have a couple of questions ready. One is by Walter, and it's also pertaining to Snowflake, the integration there. Does it take API credits?
It does not, to my knowledge. I can verify that, but it's not really applicable just because it is like a paid integration via Operations Hub Enterprise, but I can verify that for you and follow up.
That's great. That's great to hear. And then there's one question by Bill. What are some of the items that have come up with Operations Hub that Operations Hub feels like it should do in mind of users, testers, that it can currently not. So maybe let's begin with data sync. Ewart or Alex, what are some of the items that it cannot do right now?
We definitely can already do a lot today, but of course, there's always feedback coming in and questions for improvements, and that's really driving our 22 roadmap. A couple of examples is today with data sync, you can only select one filter on each site. There's quite some people asking for multiple filters, being able to combine them in like an and/or structure. So that's one of the improvements that's coming. Another good example are field mapping possibilities, where like in the field mapping table, you're able to map all your HubSpot fields onto other fields. But today we're not supporting drop-down fields or multi-select fields. And that's definitely a very popular request from the community to add support for that. And the good news is that's coming. We're actively building it. Same for owner sync. Like today, you can sync your deal objects. Deals always have owners. Today, we're not keeping that owner information in sync. Also coming early 22. There's probably a lot of other examples. There's a lot of requests for other objects besides contacts, companies, deals. As mentioned before, we're definitely working on adding more objects in 22. So yeah, definitely a lot of work for us ahead in 22 and exciting things coming. Yeah,
that sounds like a lot of great improvements coming up that we'll probably cover in the next show and tells, because this
Hopefully.
will likely be a quarterly event in 2022. But yeah, let's talk about Operations Hub Pro within like programmable automation and data quality automation. What are some of the items that have came up as feedback there?
Yeah, I think two areas that we've heard of, and Jason, I don't know if you have any that you want to add, but I think one is that a lot of our Operations Hub features are specifically custom code are very code heavy. And so a lot of people want more that are not necessarily, you don't need an engineer to help you build them. And so kind of making that more accessible to everyone. And then the other area is around triggers or enrollment. There is a lot of, we usually get a lot of requests around expanded functionality there and things like that. So Jason, anything you want to add?
Nope, that's perfect.
Cool. So looking now at enterprise, Datasets, Snowflake, it really just launched, but I'm eager to hear like what are some of the items that you've already heard from our customers?
Yeah, business intelligence and reporting is like a whole black hole. So there's an endless number of things we could add, and I think that like the biggest ones we hear often are more complicated calculations and kind of giving people just almost free reign to do conditional stuff, like use if-then statements in our calculated field and not. And I think we're kind of figuring out how that like looks in our tool without being too confusing, but definitely thinking about how to bring it to the customer.
And that's an interesting prospect. And then Megan.
Yeah, I mentioned this before, but we, with the Snowflake integration, we do get a lot of questions about, will you support data warehouse X, Y, or Z? And so that's absolutely something on our radar that we're thinking about for the future. Nothing to commit to yet, but certainly something we're investigating. That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we have one other question, or it actually was already answered. So I'll talk about the one by Bruno. And it talks about data sync specifically on Google Sheets, because there's currently one that's only one way, I think, HubSpot through to Google Sheets, but I'm not sure if Google Sheets is on your radar at all.
Google Sheets is on the radar, but probably not short term. Like Google Sheets it's quite complex, the sync, building a sync with Google Sheets because of the very flexible format you can have. Like you can define your objects really in a very flexible way. We're already able to cope with that kind of flexibility. For example, when we launched or integration with some other of those database spreadsheet kind of apps like Airtable. For Google Sheets, I know specifically there's a couple of API challenges that we have, and internally there's some information floating around on how we should solve it. So definitely expect to come to data sync, but yeah, hard to give an ETA here.
Makes sense. Thanks for answering. And then our last one is actually being answered by Stephen. You care to answer it live?
Yeah, custom objects should be, the question I should mention is, will Datasets support custom objects in pulling data from the forecasting tool? Custom objects should be supported, undetermined on the forecasting tool in terms, I actually don't know a ton about that data structure. We don't support it now. I'm not sure what it would take to support, so I can get back to you or just like noodle on that more about like how easy that be to implement a tool.
Okay, cool. And then another question came in by Bill, and it pertains to many of the people in the panel here. Once for Ewout, I think it's just an answer, but he wants to say thanks, and then it's just some feedback, I think, in general, not really questions. Or just there's one question. Sorry for doing this live. It's to Megan. Another request for data warehouse. Who should he reach out to?
I would love to hear from you on the community on that, or right now in the chat. We have a community post that's already up where you can provide feedback or questions about Snowflake. So that's a great place to give us feedback. We'll see that. Okay.
I'll try to get that link in the chat real soon, Bill, for you, but thanks for answering your questions. And then there's one by Keisha. Will I be able to bring in prospect and customer data from Salesforce mode outreach into HubSpot via Operations Hub? Currently, we have multiple KPI dashboards in multiple places.
So regarding prospect and customer information, definitely in scope of DataSync. As mentioned, there's a Salesforce native sync, not powered by DataSync, but it's pretty powerful, syncing contacts, accounts, opportunities, even tasks, and also custom objects. Outreach is supported by DataSync. We're offering a contact sync, company sync, and deal sync. For mode, I'm not sure, definitely not on the DataSync platform. We should look at the marketplace if there's a solution today.
Cool, thanks. And then there was one probably last question, because we're almost at time, by Bruno. Will another DAX formulas be available in Operations Hub? And Stephen is already answering it as well. Sorry.
I think it's like data analytical expression. So basically, will there be other functions and ways to compute new insights in data sets? We leverage most of the library of Snowflake. So as more use cases emerge, we'll add more functions and different like power to that. So the answer is yes. Which specific functions? I would love if you actually sent me what you would like to see that isn't a tool, because that'd be really helpful feedback.
All right, and that brings us to, I would say, probably the end of this show and tell. Thank you everyone who was here or is watching this recording. I really appreciate everyone that was here asking questions and just learning about Operations Hub. And also, of course, thank you to Stephen, Jason, Alex, Megan, Ewout, and Emma for presenting everything about Operations Hub and everything that's also coming to Operations Hub very soon. Really appreciate all of that. I will end on one maybe last CTA, and that's just to join the community. I have written a post there, which is, what sort of processes did Operations Hub already help you, optimize in 2021? I'd love to hear your opinions. If you, of course, are using Operations Hub already, and no need to really answer that if you're just new and just here to learn. But yeah, again, thank you so much for attending this. We will do another Operations Hub show and tell in, well, next quarter, Q1 of 2022, and I hope to see you there. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Jan.
Bye.